Hey everyone, welcome. It's Michigan's AutoTalk Podcast, and I'm producer Phil Tower, Al Schwinkendorf, and John Puick. We gave host Al and John this episode off because I had a great opportunity to connect with one of the top dogs. Yeah, this is a great opportunity. I've got on this episode the editor-in-chief for Road and Track magazine. Mike Guy has been editor-in-chief at Road and Track since January of 2020. In post-COVID times, we call that pre-COVID. He was also founder and former editor-in-chief of The Drive and has written for just about every other magazine you've ever seen on the newsstand anywhere. Quite the prolific writer, and I'm sure a car guy as well. Mike, welcome to Michigan's Auto Talk.
It's so nice to be here and to be called a top dog. I appreciate that very much.
Well, that's.
I will also add that I am in the Best American Sports Writing Anthology for my profile of Tony Stewart back when he was running. It was for Rolling Stone, and back when he was. That was 2008. And I just got off the phone with his guys, and I'm setting up a rematch right now. We got into a little heated exchange after the story came out because it was a little too honest for his liking, for NASCAR's liking. But he got in touch. I've sort of been in touch with him for a while, and he got in touch because of the Performance Car of the Year issue. He's a reader, of course, of Road and Track, as any respectable car enthusiast is. And he's a big fan of the winner, and he wanted to chat about it. And I talked him into bringing me to Eldora so we could do a little bit of playing around on the cushion in quarter midgets or midgets or whatever he'll let me get into. And P-Cody, as we call it, Performance Car of the Year, always brings interesting folks out of the woodwork.
Yeah,
when it's announced.
And you had quite a list. This is the 10th annual testing and ranking of the favorite new sports cars on the road. And I mean, there's some obvious ones in here. The Vet is on here, the Z06. And then, you've got the one that I guess surprised me is, the Civic's on there. But everybody has been talking about the GR Corolla. That's been getting a lot of ink. It's all over the internet. What a fun car to drive that is. And we're not going to get right to the winner, but in terms of this process to narrow it down to the contenders, is this an all Road and Track, all hands on deck, all staff, kind of all your writers do this? Walk us through the process.
Yeah, we fly everybody in. I mean, Road and Track staff is based all over the country. We're in California. Matt Farah's in LA. AJ Bames up near Tahoe. Dan Pond, our executive editor, is in Detroit, the Detroit area. We're kind of spread out all over the place. And we come to my backyard. I live up in the Hudson Valley, and we go to Monticello Motor Club, which is this great private club track up here in the Hudson Valley, conveniently close to my house. And it's where I spend a lot of my weekends. And we find the 10 cars that we can get our hands on, 10 cars that are available, and the most important ones in our world, in the performance world. And we gather them all together for 5 days. We spend 2 days on the track and 3 days, 2 days on the track, 2 days on the roads. We've got these public roads out here that are built around these reservoirs that feed New York City. So you can't build around the reservoirs, but the roads are in impeccable condition because the state maintains them because they're reservoir roads, but there's no intersecting driveways or no intersecting roads, and the roads are gorgeous. And not a lot of people are out there, and you can really unwind the cars, obviously very responsibly. And there's no need for us to really cane them on public roads because we just spend 2 days tearing the tires apart on the racetrack. And so we find, we collect the cars that we're most interested in, and we think our readers are most interested in, and we assess them as track cars, and then we assess them as road cars, and we put them into a big jambalaya, and we spend a couple of nights arguing with each other over beer,
adult beverages, yeah,
and steak, and at the end of the day, we all keep notebooks, and at the end of the day, I choose the winner. I mean, this is my third one or second or third one, and it's always come down to two cars. Last year, the new Porsche GT3 won, and it was a really tight race between that one and the Blackwing, the Cadillac Blackwing, which I really, really loved. And I thought was a better all-around car, although that Porsche GT3 just blew everybody's brains out on the track. And and on the road, our secondary roads. Anybody who drove it on the highway grew to hate it pretty fast. But it was, at the time, it was a great car. This year, we had a lot of really fascinating. I mean, you brought up the Civic earlier. It's the Civic Type R, and it is just an amazing machine. I mean, we're bringing into account like the cost of the cars, how they do on the roads, how they do on the tracks, and how we feel about them.
Mm-hmm.
We're not necessarily. I mean, we're setting lap times, sort of a standardized lap time at Monticello. But really, it's like at the end of the day, is this an all-around great performance car? Is it a performance car that you could daily drive? Is it something you could bring to a track day and be happy with? Is it something you can be emotionally attached to? What are its flaws? What are its strengths? And we kind of have to, because of the range of cars we have, we sort of have to feel great about them rather than just say, wow, the Huracán is just, it's Broadway theater on the racetrack. We had the Huracán Tecnica this year and the STO last year, and they're just outrageous cars to drive on the racetrack. Super fast. There were only 3 cars that we had that went over 140 in the back straight, and that was one of them. And they're just amazing to drive on the racetrack, whereas the CTR is a very different experience. The Civic Type R is a very different experience on the racetrack. Having said that, it's also an amazing car to drive on a racetrack. And I'll say the same thing about the ridiculous GR Corolla, Toyota. We had the Maurizio edition, and it came like completely kitted out with Pilot Sport Cup 2s and no back seat, the rear doors. It didn't have rear doors. It's made for the track, and it was almost too much GR Corolla. But it converted a lot of us. It kind of took itself out of the running. It was so well tuned to the track. Like the practicality of the Corolla itself was kind of lost in this particular, the Maurizio edition. And Gazoo Racing really set this up.
Yeah, I want to ask you about the Corolla and a lot of these cars, because the other one that I think was the surprise for me on the list is the Hyundai Elantra N, which you guys called the best bang for your buck in terms of a performance car. Really, just an amazing vehicle. That you were just talking about the Toyota GR Corolla. If you walk into a dealership that actually has one of those for you to buy, you order one, it's going to come pretty loaded nonetheless. Not like the car you got with the Cup 2s, but it's going to come pretty loaded, right?
It's going to come loaded. It's going to be expensive. You're not going to get it either. I have 2 guys on my staff who've been on the list, and we have some connections. And
I'll bet you do.
They're not like, Yeah, we got some connections. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mr. Toyota retired yesterday or today, so maybe we don't have the connections anymore. But the Hyundai, I think it was Brian Silvestro who is really. I mean, we all talk about bang for the buck. The thing comes in at under 35 grand.
Yeah.
And it's not an Elantra. It's not an Elantra N. It's a very different machine. It's like the steering on it is fantastic. It rotates beautifully. It feels so good to drive. It's an extremely connected car, and it's a humble car. I mean, it's a Hyundai, and when you sit in it, as much I actually love Hyundais right now, and I think Koreans are making amazing cars. But you drive it on track, you love it there. You drive it on the road, you love it there, and you realize that it comes together so well. Everything about it comes together so well. It's underpowered compared to the rest of the cars, but perfectly powered for what it is. It's a 2-liter. It's a turbocharged. I think it's the inline 4. It's under 300 horsepower. It's just barely over 250. But it feels like I keep going back to feeling. It just feels like an amazing car, and that the joy to dollar ratio on that is ridiculous. And we've always loved what Hyundai's done for a while. And a few years, 2 or 3 years ago, the Veloster won Performance Car of the Year in a somewhat controversial throwdown late one night. But it earned it, and for a lot of the same reasons. This is a similar beast, and it is a really special car. I love the transmission in it. We had the 8-speed dual clutch.
Wow.
And it's got a great trick diff. It's just a great car to drive. And GR Corolla is, it's not a normal car. I got to say, it's like you're not going to see one just casually. When you see one, it's going to turn your head, and it's amazing. It's the car that everybody really wants to buy on our staff. Even though we've mostly ended up with Civic Type R's. It's great. It's such an interesting mix. There's we've got the Audi RS3, which is a fantastic car, but it's also $70,000 and it's 400 horsepower. It's just a different beast. So we're trying to regulate that, I guess it's like a balance of performance a little bit.
Well, I want to give you and your staff credit because it is an amazing list. I give it an A, a straight A. I love the list, and I just think it's all your arguments are well laid out. You've got a great, and I want our listeners to know, roadandtrack.com. This is the newest issue on newsstands. I know a lot of our listeners at Michigan's Auto Talk, they like having the hard copy magazine. True car lovers love that. I mean, it's the best thing, and you want to get this Road and Track double issue because this is a great read on an incredible lineup of cars. Before we run out of time, by the way, we're speaking on Michigan's Auto Talk with Mike Guy, editor-in-chief for Road and Track magazine, as we talk about the Performance Car of the Year for 2023. It happens to be, as you guys call it, which is no surprise, the Ferrari from Bowling Green, Kentucky. And it's not the Z06, by the way. Interesting, at Sidebar, I read a little article on a Corvette forum that there are still about 5 or 10% of owners of this car that actually call it the Z06. It's the Z06. That's what the majority of people call it. I just thought that was funny, amusing. This is the most powerful, naturally aspirated production V8 ever made from Motown. And not only that, 670 horsepower. It's just an unbelievable beast. 166,000 price as tested, 166,205. A lot of people would say that's predictable from maybe given the crop you have and given the price point, but tell me why. I've got about a minute or two left, Mike Guy. Tell me why the Z06 ended up being the performance car of the year for Road and Track.
I mean, listen, everything you say is true. It's the Ferrari from Bowling Green. This one's priced at $166 and change. It's a 3,700-pound car. It produces 670 horsepower. It's an outrageous car to drive. It has a soul to it that the Chevy, that the mid-engine Corvette has been working toward since it was introduced, by Taj, very controversially, and the soul of the car is everywhere you bring it. It has a presence that you feel on the road, you feel on the track. It's got this balance and this ferocity. I think, there are a few, like the C6R, there are a few Corvettes out there that just they embody what you really want in a Corvette and what makes it the most important sports car in America ever. And this particular Z06 at the end of the day, it didn't even come close. That flat plane thing, that flat plane engine just blows your mind. It feels great. It feels great as a daily driver. It's really comfortable. It's a killer on the track. The balance on this car is like nothing else. We all sort of wanted to bury ourselves in it and never leave the car. At the end of the day, it wasn't really a close call this year like it was last year. I had design issues with it. I think that it's a couple evolutions away from its actual design. It's still a little busy and there are too many angles on it, but you can still stand next to a Ferrari and say to the annoyance of a Ferrari, or hey, that's a really cool looking Ferrari at a fraction of the price. It is the most complete Corvette I've driven in many, 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 many years, and it's a great price. You can get this Stingray for around $100,000. This one's pretty kitted out, but it's a beast, and it's what the Corvette is meant to be. It's the most complete embodiment of the model of any of these cars. It's the most complete of them all. I mean, in the same way that GT3 was the most complete GT3 we had driven last year, this is a fully formed beast, and it blew all of our minds.
I love every minute. What I love about what you were saying is you described this car. You were struggling that like this car is beyond words, Mike. That's what I heard in your voice. It's like you're trying to describe this woman that took your breath away, and it's just like, I can't believe. It's like you said, you want to be buried in this car. You want to eat in this car. Yeah. You want to take a shower in this car. You don't want to leave it. It's just got an environment where you just go, man, I feel like I've escaped from the world. And I love that.
Corvettes have been my vibe for a really long time. Even the less successful performance Corvettes have had a vibe to them that real enthusiasts respond to. This one has that vibe times 1,000, and it's got the performance times 1,000, and the design will get there. It's the most complete Corvette we've driven.
Absolutely love it. Mike Guy is editor-in-chief for Road and Track and roadandtrack.com. We've been talking about the performance car of the year, which is, of course, the one and only Chevrolet Corvette C06, and it is a beast indeed, the Ferrari from Bowling Green. That'll put the wraps on this episode of Michigan's AutoTalk Podcast. Mike Guy, we'd love to have you back again on a future episode. Really enjoyed speaking with you.
Anytime. Please give me a call and have a great new year.
Yeah, you as well, too, and happy driving, my friend.
Thanks, sir.
All right, take care. He is Mike Guy, once again, editor-in-chief of Road and Track magazine, with us on this episode number 92 of Michigan's AutoTalk Podcast. Again, we gave hosts Al Schwinkendorf and John Puick this episode off. They'll be back with us in our next episode. Until next time, don't forget, like our podcast, review our podcast. We're available wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, of course, on the iHeartRadio app, on Spreaker, on Spotify, and on the Apple Podcast as well, Google Podcast. And don't forget to like our Facebook page. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for listening.